You're listening to Lawsuit Proofing Your City, a podcast with Scott Grossberg. Each week, we explore current trends in lawsuits brought against cities and give you tips, tricks, and techniques for fighting back. And now, here's your host, Scott Grossberg.
Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to talk about something that takes up, quite frankly, a great deal of time in my live training. I want to keep this episode short for you, so I'm only going to touch on the highlights. Perhaps we'll go into some more details in a later episode. But at the very least, what we're going to talk about today will get you thinking in a new direction. When someone claims that they've tripped and fallen on a sidewalk in your city or in one of your buildings, what do you think one of the first questions I'm going to ask will be? Or when someone complains about being harassed or having a hostile work environment and a specific location is involved, what do I need? The answer? Photographs or video or both. And that means before and after visuals. And I need images that accurately depict the location as it existed when it was encountered by the plaintiff, or at least that it reasonably and accurately portrays what the plaintiff might have encountered. And I also need visuals that show how your agency chose to address the situation and potentially repair or remediate the problem. All of this is important because in my experience, jurors, the 12 people in state court or the 6 people in federal court, like to see things. They don't want me or a witness simply telling them things. They want to see with their own eyes. And some of that is a function of social media today and Instagram and YouTube and things like that. The challenge I run into is time. It's usually a year and a half before I even get your case. And let me back up and explain why that's the case. First of all, in California, before a state action can be filed, a plaintiff has to file a tort claim, and that's done 6 months after an incident occurs. Then there's the 45-day time period for you to consider the tort claim, and I'm going to presume it's been rejected or we wouldn't even be discussing something that I'm going to use with a jury. Then there's another 6 months after your rejection of the claim for the complaint to be filed. Now notice I did not say served. I have in some cases had the actual service of the complaint take place months after the filing of the complaint, and you can see how very easily we're now approaching a year and a half. All too often in that intervening time period, I find that staff isn't even thinking about taking photographs or creating videos that will help me tell a visual story, and if they are taking photographs or video, they aren't usable. For example, while I appreciate the desire to use flash on a camera, that's not how our eyes actually see. And I encounter objections from opposing counsel as to the lack of foundation for the use of a photograph that was taken with flash. That is not to say that I don't want you to use flash, but I want you to take photographs or shoot video without the flash on as well. Further, if video or photographs are created after the fact by staff, and I mean after repairs are made, that makes my defense challenging if I don't have photographs or video showing what it looked like before the repairs were made. This situation gets amplified when I have opposing counsel argue that evidence has been destroyed. Now, nobody's out actually destroying evidence. What happens is that opposing counsel argues that the failure of my public entity to adequately preserve the area through a photograph or video has damaged their ability to reasonably prosecute their client's case against you. So how do we solve all this? First, let's take photographs of an incident location before repairs or other remediation are undertaken. And those photographs can be taken as soon as you have received notice. Perhaps it's a phone call, perhaps it's the tort claim itself, perhaps somebody is driving by from your agency and they see something. Take the photographs before. Second, the best thing when considering taking photographs or video is to think of what you're shooting as ultimately being used by me to tell a visual story of what happened. So keep asking, what am I trying to show? Next, and obviously we've talked about it already, make sure you're taking photographs of the incident location after the repairs or other remediation is completed. And by the way, if you're involved in repairs that affect the path of travel or go out into the street, for example, then I want you to take photographs of the traffic control or the pedestrian control that you've put in place during repairs, as that may become an issue. Next, if it would help to explain the situation and location, take visuals, take photographs and video while the repair or remediation is taking place. Don't be afraid to take multiple photographs and piece them together if the scene is too large for one shot. Also, I want you to take shots that show the context and the general area as well. Kind of think of what you're shooting as what we call establishing shots in the movies. These are pictures taken from a distance that show the relationship between important items, people, and objects. And of course, I need you to retain the photographs. I need you to keep the video. And you will do that pursuant to your individual agency's document retention policy. Now, I'm going to cover document retention in an upcoming episode. By the way, usually the photographs and videos that you take are discoverable. They are public records and generally not protected from disclosure. And one last thing, these tips are not meant to be exhaustive, but I want to add one last thing. If you're going to show a ruler, some form of measurement in your photo or video, make sure you have the measurement device placed properly. When I do this type of training live, I literally have to show people how to place a ruler so that it accurately reflects the true measurement. You would be surprised how many times a ruler gets stuck in the crack of a sidewalk, for example, and that obviously changes what is shown in the measurement. So there are some quick tips for creating photographs and videos that will ultimately help us in the defense of the case. Thank you for joining me today. Until next week, here's to us taking back the courtroom together.
You've reached the end of another episode of Lawsuit Proofing Your City with Scott Grossberg. If you like our show, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate our broadcast, and leave a review. You can always check out lawsuitproofyourcity.com for more information and show notes. And remember to go to the archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This podcast is for general information only and not intended to be legal advice nor the formation of a lawyer-client relationship. Stay tuned for our next episode, and thank you for listening.